Hi everyone, set 8 has finally come out, and today I'll go through the top 10 comps to climb with that I've been having the most success with on PB, and I think these will also do very well on the live servers. The first one up is going to be Recon Reroll. Here we're going to reroll for Kai'Sa and Vayne 3-star. Which one you prioritize depends a little bit on your items. If you get better items for Kai'Sa, you'll prioritize her. If you get better items for Vayne, you'll prioritize her. But generally, you want to go for Kai'Sa over Vayne. She generally have the most success with her. With this comp, you slow roll at level 7, and you do that by simply just dropping one of the units. It can be Jinx a lot of the time, or it can drop Janna. She's going to also be hard to hit at level 7. And then as for items, we want Shiv on Kai'Sa because she gets a really high attack speed. With her spell, she gets even more attack speed, and we're also running Star Guardian to make sure that she gets more mana as well. And the Static Shiv got a little bit of a rework in set 8, so now it gives a lot more AP damage into your carry. It's not so much about the lightning bolts. The second item is going to be an AP item because she deals a lot of damage with her third attack. And so as we get more attack speed, she's going to deal even more AP. And therefore we want Jewel Gauntlet to make sure that we can crit. And then the third item is going to be a healing item since she gets a ton of attack speed, and then she's going to be casting a lot. And what the Recon trait does is that if a champion is next to her while she casts, she'll dash away. And so then she'll have time to heal back up, and it'll be really hard to lock her down, especially if the enemy team only has melee champions left. And there is also a lot of splash damage in this set, so this will help her heal up from anything from like a Talia cast, or from a Urgot ult, or from a Fiddlesticks ult. A lot of those things she'll be able to heal back up from. Now, Vayne is kind of just a better version of the one-cost Vayne from set 1 to 4. Instead of it being every third cast, she deals a little bit of true damage. Now she has 40 mana, and then her spell makes her deal a boatload of damage. Because of this, we just want that to deal as much damage as possible, so we go IE and Giant Slayer, but any other AD items work on her. And then we also have Rageblade to make sure that she can keep generating mana to keep casting her spell and to just completely annihilate the enemy team. We have Duelistin, but it's only 6%, so we kind of want Rageblade as well, because Duelist is only up to 10 stacks, but with Rageblade it's infinite. Then you also check your main tank items on Nilah if you 3-star her. If not, you can check them on Echo or Sejuani. Then Janna also has the Forecaster ability, so the units next to her get extra stats. So for example, if it's the one that gives extra shields, then you can also like move these units down to give them a little bit of extra shields. But if it's the starting mana, then you can also move them down. But if it is the get AD and AP every second, I think that's the third one. Something like you get stacks every like 5 seconds. Then you don't really need these down here. But if you don't 3-star Nilah, you can also move your items over on Echo and Sejuani. Both of these work as your main tanks. Then as for augments, Triforce is great any 3-cost reroll comp. Ascension is just insane because once Kai'Sa and Vayne have like stacked up their attack speeds, they're just gonna annihilate everything. Then Axiom Arc is great on Kai'Sa because she only has 60 mana and then Vayne only has 40 mana. So this should give them enough mana to almost like permacast if they get a kill. The second one here is Miss Fortune with Anima Squad. This comp, I wanted Fast 8 since we're running a forecast carry as our main carry. And we also want to see some legendaries as well. With Miss Fortune, we want Sojin since she has a really high mana. This makes sure that she can actually cast quite often. And then the other two items are going to be damage items. She's a pretty standard AP caster with her spell. But with the Anima Squad, she gets more ability power, so we want that to crit. That's why we go JG over Deathcap, and then we also have Giant Slayer to make sure that she can get through the tanks, because the tanks stop her ult. It's not like the Miss Fortune from set 3, where she would just go through the entire board. In set 8, if a unit is in front of our spell, it'll stop at that unit until it dies, then it'll go through. So for example, if the MF is here, the Vayne is going to be safe until the Echo and Nasus die from the spell. That's why we want Giant Slayer. You check your main items onto Riven. You can also check them on Echo if you don't have that many fame stacks, because the way this trait works is that every time they get a kill, you get HP. So if you've been running Anima Squad really early on, and throughout the entire game, then you can have gotten some insane amounts of HP. So then usually, if that's the case, then you want to put your tank items onto Riven, because she's going to be having a ton of HP. But if not, you can put it on Echo. And also, if you have some spare AD items, you can check them on either Vayne or Aphelios, although Aphelios obviously is going to be stronger with them. As for augments, anything to make MF cast faster or deal more damage, like Uplink and Lotus. And I also like to have some healing augments if I get the chance, because we can't really run a healing item on Miss Fortune. So just getting a bit of healing through Celestial Blessing or through the Hunt is really nice. Because there is, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of backline access and splash damage in this set. Alright, next one up is going to be Camille Reroll. With this comp, we're going to be slow rolling at level 6. You drop you drop these two, well, and you slow roll with this board. And then you're going to be slow rolling at level 6 for Camille, Lee Sin, and Vi. Camille is the most important one, and then you can also chase Vi and Lee Sin if you're close to those as well, by the time you hit Camille. As for her items, you want Titans and BT. Those are like the two items you absolutely want. BT just because she benefits from both AP, AD, and the tank stats, since she is a bit of a bruiser type carry. And then I just to make sure that her spell can crit and deal a ton of damage, because if it does crit, she can one-shot a ton of backliners, and even some tanks if they're not 2-starred. And then you check your tank items onto Vi, because she shreds armor, and Camille is an attack damage based carry. And so if you are able to keep Vi alive longer, you're going to make your Camille deal more damage. Lee Sin is also someone you can check your tank items onto if you 3-starred him and didn't 3-star Vi, because his shield is going to help Camille stay alive in a lot of cases. And then one thing to note about Renegade, this trait gives you more damage to the last one alive, so you kind of want Talon and Silas to die right away, so you definitely don't want to 3-star these at all, and you want them to die right away into the fight, so you just instantly give Camille that extra damage. Then once you are done slow running at level 6, you want to go to level 8. If the 4 admin trait is not great, then you want to go for 4 bruisers and run this version. But if you want to go with 4 admin, then you can drop Sejuani Syndra to put in Soraka and LeBlanc, and then run this version. Which one is stronger just depends on the admin trait, but I find that most of the time the 4 admin is not worth it, and it's just better to run these units. Especially Sejuani. Syndra can be like replaced by any threat or any other champion, but here you're going to be able to throw in a lot of the later capped units, because the fights tend to be a bit long in this comp since we have a ton of 3-stars. As for augments, anything to give Camille more damage, like Knife's Edge, Cybernetic Implants, those are augments. And whenever you're running comps with 3-star units, second wind is just insane, especially when we're pairing them with brawlers as well. And also first aid kit, because Camille is going to be healing even more from the BT and getting a bigger BT shield, and also bigger healing from the second wind. Just great combination with whenever you have BT on your main carry, and also other healing augments. Next up, we have Ox Forest Viego. With this comp, we again want a fast state, playing around a 4-cost carry. And you might see that we're not going deep into Ox Forest with this comp. We're only in 4 right now. And the thing is that Ox Forest just gives more attack speed to the units. But if you look at the ones we're missing Annie and Fiora for 6 Ox Forest. But if you look at our traits, Fiora's a duelist and Annie's like a spellslinger and gadgetine. And we don't really need those traits at all. The units themselves are only 2 costs, so we're getting close to no value if we add those in. Especially since Viego with a spell, all he wants to do is just cast a spell and he deals AP. And since he's a melee carry and has low mana, then he can very easily just recast the spell just from taking damage. So 6 Ox Force is not going to do that much for us. Even if we don't hit Aphelios, for example, it's better just to only play 2 Ox Force. You can just play these 3. You don't really need to play the 4th one. Although depending on what other units you have and stuff, it's fine to just play like an Annie for a bit more frontline until you hit Aphelios. But just the overall point I'm trying to make is Ox Force is not really that valuable for Viego, although it definitely does help to make him recast. As for items on Viego, definitely want 1 healing item. Since he has a melee carry and he's going to be dashing around a lot, his spell works basically like Pike spell from set 7. So we want BT, make sure that he can heal up. And then we need Giants there so we can get through the front line, because he doesn't have backline access built into his spell. And then the third item is going to be any item that just gives him more damage, so I like Death Cap just to give him more raw AP. And then as for the Wukong Leona set, we can pretty much just run any 3 tanks here. Just want tanks to stall for Viego and keep Samira and Aphelios alive. This is like a pretty cool combination, makes set super tanky. And then also with Leona we get Renegade and Aegis. But you can also replace these with threats, but you want to make sure you have at least 3 Renegade whenever you're running this comp. And if you get any spare AD items, you can check them on Aphelios or Samira. And as for augments, anything that gives Viego more AP, like Battle Mage is great. And also anything that just makes him heal more, like First Aid Kit, or even adding in Celestial Blessing or Thrill of the Hunt. And then Jewel Load is just to make sure that his spell can crit. He has an AP carry, although it's a bit unintuitive for a TFT. Next one up is Taliyah. Here we're running a mix of Star Guardians and Spellslingers. Again, want a fast state here since we're playing around a 4-cost carry, and we really want some legendaries here with Syndra and Janna. We're going to get a ton of raw AP through Spellslinger, which just gives you more AP into the Spellslinger champions. And then we also get mana through Star Guardian, so we kind of have our mana generating item here, and then we have raw AP here. So we just want to scale off of that with a Jewel Gauntlet and Giant Slayer. This to make sure that we just multiply the raw AP. This is to make sure that we can get through tanks. And this item is just because the fights tend to last a bit long. That's why I like Archangels, but you can also remove Archangels to go with something like Guardbreaker to make sure that we can get through the shields. Even also putting an item like Static Shiv on her, also I've seen do well. It just depends on a little bit on what items you slam, but the fights tend to be a bit long, so I like Archangels as well. Then you throw your main tank items onto Echo. Just any tank items will do fine, but generally here our frontline is a bit weaker, so I really like having Stone Plate on him to make sure that he can cast more often, and he also taunts with the spell. As for augments, anything to make our units cast faster or deal more damage is what we want. You can also add healing here with Celestial Blessing and Thrill of the Hunt. And yeah, with Syndra here, especially you just want to throw in more tanks. So like having Zax on your bench is going to be nice because he doesn't really need any traits, so you just throw him in and then you have more frontline. That's what you want to throw in with Syndra. Alright, next up is a 1 cost and 2 cost reroll comp. Essentially just a super reroll comp. With this, you get more damage with every 3-star you have. So we kind of just want to 3-star every single 1 cost and 2 cost onto our board. We're running a mix of Renekton and Ashe carry here. Whichever you make your main carry depends a little bit on if you got a hero augment for any of them, but I think that generally speaking, I've played more Renekton carry, but I've also had great success with Ashe carry. So you just pick whichever one you feel you have the most success with and which you have better items for. Renekton's items are basically the same as Camille's items. You need BT and Titans for him, and then the third one is either like IE or Giant Slayer. I've also seen some people do Warmogs as a third item. That's because his spell gives him more HP, and we're also running 4 Brawlers, so he gets even more value from that Warmogs. And as for Ashe, just any standard AD items, here we're going full crit to make sure that she gets a 100% crit chance. So the way you play this is you first slow roll at level 5 with a board like this. Whether you have Malphite or Gangplank doesn't really matter. And then you slow roll until you hit Renekton 3-star and Ashe 3-star, and then you keep the extra Gangplanks on your bench, and then you level up to 6, add in the Malphite. Slow roll until you've 3-starred almost all of these. If you hit 5 of them and then you only are really far off Malphite or Lee Sin or something like that, you can just go to level 8. Because you only get 5% extra damage once you hit a 3-star, but you still just hold on to the extra ones on the bench. Then I always find that adding in Sejuani for 4 Brawler and 3 Lacer is really valuable. Then in the end here, especially for running Ashe carry, you want to get Recon in. The Duelist doesn't really matter that much, and if you don't really have great items for Ashe, you can play any other unit over Vayne to give you more value. As for augments, just anything that gives us more gold, like Trade Sector, AFK, even Rich Get Richer maybe. Those are great in any reroll comp, and then prep to make sure that we can get even more damage into our units once they get put onto the board. Since we're going to be having a lot of them on our bench for a long time when we're slow rolling. And then we have a second win. Again, great in any reroll comp where you're going for 3 stars, especially also when you have Brawlers, because you just have such insanely high HP pools, and just getting to fill a percentage of that is just incredibly valuable. So next up is 6 Lacer Zed carry. With this comp, pretty standard, again, fast 8 comp, running Zed as our main carry, and then we have kind of the Lacer Corp trait as our secondary carry. The way this trait works is that whenever you attack or get attacked, you have a chance to deal damage to the champion with your drones, and this can deal some insane damage, especially if we have some tanky units. But first, we're running Hacker here, so Zed is going to be launched into the backline. Kind of like this basically turns him into Assassin. And so with his items, since he's going to be in the backline, he might be a bit vulnerable, so we want to make sure we have Edge of Night so he can stay alive. And then I like to have a healing item, which is either going to be BT or Hodge, and then I like to have 1 damage item, so it can be Infinity Edge, but it can also be like Runans, Giant Slayer, even Guardbreaker, the new item. You have a ton of different options, Deathblade as well. Basically like any standard AD item. And then your other items are just going to be tank items, because the longer you're going to survive, the more damage they're going to deal through this trait. So you don't really need any more damage than you have into the Zed. And just one note is that you want to always put Zed in the middle, and then once the fight is about to start, you either move him to the right side or to the left side. So if you have him in the Hackerim Hex, then you just need to move the Hackerim and then Zed will follow. But if you move like Zed here, the Hackerim will stay still. But if you have him in here, then Zed will always follow. That's just a small tip whenever you're running a Hackerim. As for augments, anything to give Zed more AD. So here we have Knife's Edge, so then we just want to move him up here. Implants and makeshift armor, anything that makes Zed deal more damage through AD or makes your team tankier. So also like second wind, stuff like that is also going to be incredibly valuable here. Next one's Samara carry, running 4 Sure Shot here, But we have a lot of flexibility in this comp alone. If we don't really need more damage, these 2 units can always be dropped because they don't really give any additional traits to our frontline. But with this comp, want to fast 8 because we're running Samira, and then also want to hit Sejuani and Echo as well, and Aphelios if possible. Now, I found that this mix of Aegis and Bruiser works great, but since Samira doesn't really have any traits that overlap nicely with the tanks, you can pretty much run any frontline you want, as you can also just check in like Zax and run, for example, Rammus. You don't have to run these units, but I found that this is generally like the best version. These Sivir and Senna, like I said, can also be dropped to either like put in 4 Bruiser, put in another Aegis, or just put in threats. So yeah, with Samira, going full crit is what I've found to be the most successful to make sure we can shred the backline. Because with our spell, we're going to be dealing damage to pretty much the entire board, although it doesn't deal that much. But through Ace, if we can one-shot some of the backliners if they have taken some splash damage from, like, for example, Aphelios or from Senna or Sivir or Sejuani. One thing to note is that Vi shreds armor with her spell, so we don't have to have Last Whisper either. But then you got to be really careful and make sure that you position like Vi. You line her up with Samira to make sure that she shreds the resistances. You can kind of think of Vi as like a Whisper champion from the last set. And then throw main tank items onto Sejuani, and then augments, anything to give Samira more damage or to make your frontline more tanky. So yeah, like if you're running Exiles, you'll just split up like this. So next one up here is going to be Soraka carry with Hearts. With her, you want blue buff because she only has 40 mana. So she's going to be casting a lot. And Heart works like Spellslinger and Academy from previous sets. More times you cast your spell, the more AP your team gets. So with blue buff, we're going to be getting a ton of stacks from Heart, and that's going to be our main source of damage. And since we're getting a ton of raw AP from the trait, we want to make sure that crits off of Jewel Gauntlet. And then also want to make sure that we heal up our team so we can keep getting even more Heart stacks and even more damage. And it's just a snowball. If you can survive a bit with us, then you're going to be dealing a ton of damage. You can kind of think of this comp as like a Vanguard Mystic typical comp where you just stall, stay alive for as long as possible, and then you just slowly kill the entire enemy team with Soraka and Cinder just tossing in a bunch of damage. Then you throw your main tank items onto Sejuani again, but you can also do Echo, depending on who you want. And again, your frontline can be kind of whatever you hit. You don't have to run Bruisers, but I just found that Bruisers are at least like my favorite frontline so far in this set, but that could change. Also, want to make sure you have 2 admin if the admin trait is good. If it's anything that gives Soraka more AP, that's nice. You generally never want to go for 4 admin because it's hard to get 2 admin traits that really benefit Soraka. Yeah, and same thing if you have Syndra in the late game. You just want to put tanks, make her throw in tanks. Or she can throw in secondary carries, like for example, throwing in an Urgot. And you can also make her throw in a Fiddlesticks for more damage and CC. As for augments, anything that just makes you stall longer, like Second Wind, First Aid Kit. Also Exiles could work, although it's a bit awkward here when we have a ton of tanks. Then Blue Battery here. I don't know why it's not showing the logo, but this is essentially just going to make Soraka permacast. A great augment to get if you're playing this comp. And lastly, we have the Built Different comp. You have to have at least Built Different 2 or 3 to play this comp. If you only have Built Different 1, it's a bit hard to make it work since it doesn't give that many bonuses. But with this comp, want to make sure you have like no traits active. And so this is like the best endgame state you can get into, where you have no traits active and you have a ton of 4 costs and 5 costs. One thing to note here is that threats count as a trait, so you can't play threats. They're not going to get any value from Built Different. That's just one thing to note here. That's pretty important. So we're essentially just running the best tanks we can without activating any traits. So we have Sejuani, Set, and Echo, and then we also have in Malphite as well as the 8th unit. And then one thing to note about the Ace is that it's only active at 1 and 4. So here running 3. Also, if we take out Mordekaiser, running 2, and it's still not active. So you kind of run Samira as your AD carry and then Misfortune as your AP carry. And so whichever you prioritize more, it's just whatever you... If you get more AD items, you go here. If you get more AP items, you go here. And then main tank items on either Echo or Sejuani or Set, or even Mordekaiser if you hit him early. And yeah, that's going to be it for this video. All these boards will be in an Imgur album, and then I'll also leave some extra notes with them, and that'll be available for patrons and YouTube members. If you're in the cheat sheet tier or higher, you'll get access to those, and check out the links in the description for that. Now obviously it's very early on in the set, and comps haven't been completely solved, so some things might change, so make sure to subscribe so you can stick around and see the tier list videos when they get posted on Sunday. There you'll get an updated tier list of all the best comps, and also to get an updated rundown on how to play them. So make sure to subscribe for that, and like the video if you enjoyed, and yeah, stay tuned to this channel because a ton more content is coming out now that this new set is live. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.